Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're opening a case file on a truly microscopic killer, a parasite so cunning it can live inside a person for their entire life, totally undetected, only to emerge with deadly force. This is the case of Strongyloides stercoralis.
So, what is this thing? As you probably guessed, the answer is Strongyloides stercoralis. To really understand this master of persistence, this microscopic fugitive, we first need to get a lay of the land, understand the neighborhood where it operates, and, the company it keeps.
So let's start by looking at a group of organisms known as the soil-transmitted helminths, or STHs for short. Basically, these are parasitic worms that need to spend some time in the soil to complete their life cycle before they can infect us.
Okay, so here are the main culprits in soil-transmitted infections. You've got the giant roundworm, Ascaris lumbricoides, and yeah, it can grow up to 30 centimeters inside your intestines. Then there's the whipworm, Trichuris trichiora, and the hookworms, both Necator americanus and Ancylostoma duodenale, which are notorious for feeding on blood. But one of these is not like the others, and that's our focus today, Strongyloides stercoralis. See, while the others are typically transmitted when someone accidentally swallows their eggs from contaminated soil, Strongyloides stercoralis completely breaks the mold. It gets in through larvae that literally burrow right through your skin. And as we're about to see, its totally unique life cycle gives it a uniquely dangerous modus operandi.
All right, let's get into its MO. Its incredible life cycle is the absolute key to why it's so persistent and so dangerous. It is unlike pretty much any other human parasite out there.
This right here, this is its secret weapon, auto-infection. This is what separates Strongyloides stercoralis from every other human helminth infection. It means the infection can just keep going, a silent, self-perpetuating cycle for a person's entire life, all from just a single initial exposure.
And if you thought that was wild, get this. Inside the human host, there are only female worms. They reproduce through something called parthenogenesis. It's a form of asexual reproduction that lets a single adult female produce perfectly viable eggs all by herself, no male required. Just one worm can set up a lifelong infection on its own.
Now, to pull this off, the parasite transforms between two key larval stages. First, you have the rhabdidiform larva, or L1. This is the non-infective stage you'd find in stool, where it just eats bacteria. Then it develops into the filariform larva, or L3, and this is the infective stage. This is the one that can break through human skin and kick off the whole infection.
So here's the crucial point. It has two ways to survive. Out in the soil, it can have a free-living cycle where males and females reproduce sexually. But inside a person, it switches to the parasitic cycle. And that last step, auto-infection, that is the real game changer. Larvae can hatch and reinfect you without ever leaving your body. It creates a potentially endless loop of infection.
Okay, so what is the actual impact of this crazy life cycle on a person? Well, the disease it causes is called strongyloidiasis, and what happens next depends entirely on the state of your immune system.
And this just brilliantly shows the dramatic difference. In a healthy person, your immune system keeps the parasite in check. You get a chronic, often totally asymptomatic infection, maybe some mild gut issues or a weird rash. But in an immunocompromised host, say someone taking steroids, all bets are off. The parasite's reproduction just explodes. It leads to hyperinfection syndrome and disseminated strongyloidiasis, a catastrophic event where larvae spread like wildfire through your whole body.
90%. That's the terrifying mortality rate for untreated hyperinfection and disseminated strongyloidiasis. When a person's defenses are down, this quiet, decades-long infection can turn into an overwhelming and very often fatal medical emergency.
Now, given those stakes, you'd think finding this parasite would be a top priority. But it's incredibly hard to detect. It's a master of hiding, not just from the immune system, but from doctors and lab techs too.
As you can see, there is no single gold standard test. You have methods like the Behrman funnel, which concentrates larvae from stool, but you need multiple samples because the worms don't release larvae all the time. Agar plate culture is good, but it's slow and even risky for lab staff. Even the most sensitive DNA tests like RT-PCR can miss it. And serology, which looks for antibodies, can be tough because access to the best tests, like the NII-LEAP system, is really limited.
Now, what's really fascinating about this slide is how it shows you the diagnostic problem in real numbers. A study in Ethiopia compared different methods. The standard technique found a 2% prevalence. The better Behrman technique found 10.3%. But real-time PCR, that highly sensitive DNA test, revealed the prevalence was actually 28.8%. That is a staggering difference. It means, depending on the test you use, you could be missing over 90% of infections, just leaving this silent killer to fester.
So, if we can manage to find it, can we treat it? And if so, why is Strongyloides stercoralis still such a monumental problem all around the world?
614 million. That's the estimated number of people infected right now globally. To put that in perspective, that is almost double the entire population of the United States. It's a massive jump from the old World Health Organization estimate of about 100 million. It's just a staggering figure for a potentially lethal parasite.
So how did the world just miss over 500 million cases? Well, the answer goes right back to those diagnostic challenges we just talked about, and frankly, a historic lack of specific action for this parasite. Because it's so hard to find, and because its chronic form is often silent, it has just flown completely under the public health radar for decades.
Now, the really good news is we have a powerful weapon in our arsenal. The drug ivermectin is highly effective, and it targets both the adult worms and the developing larvae. A single dose can often be enough to completely clear the infection, finally breaking that vicious cycle of autoinfection. But the major challenge is a tragic irony. Access to ivermectin is restricted in the very regions where it's needed most.
So the crucial point here is that controlling this parasite requires a combined arms approach. You need public health improvements in sanitation to stop transmission in the first place. You need access to chemotherapy with ivermectin to treat people who are already infected. And you need proactive screening of at-risk patients to prevent that deadly hyperinfection syndrome.
And there is hope. A new front has opened up in the fight against this parasite. This international network, called StrongNet, is finally drawing attention to the neglected status of Strongyloides stercoralis. There are a group of researchers and organizations pushing for a better understanding of the global burden, for better diagnostic tests, and for wider availability of ivermectin. They're basically the voice for the voiceless, the advocates for the afflicted.
And that brings us to our final thought. This isn't some medical mystery without a solution. We have an effective cure. The case of Strongyloides stercoralis isn't just about a devious parasite. It's a stark reminder of the massive gap between what our medicine can do and what our global health systems actually deliver. It forces us to ask, in a world of medical marvels, how can we continue to neglect a curable disease that affects hundreds of millions of people? What will it take to finally pay attention?